My name is Isabella Rivera. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a college student living in Los Angeles, California, in the United States. Ever since I can remember, I've been fascinated by languages, the way words sound, and the way they carry so much meaning. But there's always been one question that has haunted me. Why do I forget words while speaking English? This isn't just a passing curiosity. It's a puzzle that has impacted my academic life, my friendships, and even my self-confidence. I was born into a vibrant, multicultural family. My mother, Elna, emigrated from Mexico when she was young, and my father, Robert, is a lifelong American. Growing up in a bilingual household meant that I was exposed to both Spanish and English from the very beginning. While I loved the musicality of Spanish and the crisp precision of English, I often found myself caught in a tug-of-war between the two languages. At family gatherings, I'd hear relatives switch effortlessly between languages, yet when it came time for me to speak in English at school or with friends, my mind would sometimes go blank, as if the words were hiding just beyond my reach. I remember one particularly chilly autumn day in high school, standing in front of my English class, heart-pounding as I tried to give a presentation on American literature. I had rehearsed every word, practiced in front of the mirror countless times, and even asked my best friend, Maria, for tips on overcoming stage fright. Yet, as I began to speak, my carefully prepared lines dissolved into a jumble of pauses and stutters. The sentence I had meticulously memorized turned into a series of ums and awkward silences. I could see puzzled faces and even a few sympathetic smiles from my classmates, but inside, I felt a deep, sinking embarrassment. I later learned that my mind was overwhelmed by anxiety, a reaction that made me lose access to the vocabulary I needed in that moment. My struggle didn't end there. In college, where academic discussions and presentations are a daily norm, the pressure to articulate my ideas clearly grew even more intense. I remember sitting in the university library late one night, surrounded by textbooks and research articles, trying to draft a paper on cultural identity. I had an argument or insight burning inside me, but as soon as I started writing or speaking about it, a haze would descend over my thoughts. It was as if my brain, in its quest for perfection, decided to hide the very words that could set me free. I questioned myself. Was it because English wasn't truly my first language? Or was it that the pressure to be articulate in a language that carries so much cultural significance was simply too overwhelming? There were many theories I entertained along the way. I began to suspect that perhaps my bilingual upbringing had somehow created a complex interplay in my mind, a constant, silent negotiation between two linguistic systems. Maybe every time I spoke English, part of my brain was still reaching out for its Spanish counterpart, causing a temporary freeze as the two languages clashed for dominance. Alternatively, I wondered if the anxiety of trying to meet the expectations of native speakers might be triggering an internal block, making me overly self-critical and therefore more prone to forgetting the words I knew so well in quieter moments. One of the most pivotal moments in my journey came during a casual conversation with Professor Mitchell, one of my favorite instructors in the communications department. I had stayed after class to discuss a recent lecture on language acquisition and its ties to identity. Over a pot of coffee in his modest office, lined with books and framed newspaper clippings, I hesitantly shared my struggles. "Professor, sometimes when I'm speaking English, I feel like I'm standing on a stage with a spotlight on me, and all of a sudden, I can't remember a single word. I'm terrified that people will think I'm not smart, or that I'm not really an American if I can't speak perfectly." Professor Mitchell listened intently, his kind eyes encouraging me to continue. He explained that what I was experiencing was not uncommon among bilingual individuals and even among native speakers under stress. He mentioned that the brain's executive functions, responsible for memory retrieval and language production, can sometimes falter when overloaded with anxiety or when it's juggling multiple linguistic systems. His words were a revelation, and for the first time, I began to see my struggle not as a personal failing, but as a complex interplay of biology, psychology, and cultural identity. Armed with this new understanding, I embarked on a journey to explore my relationship with language more deeply. I started keeping a journal where I meticulously recorded moments when I forgot words, noting the context, my emotional state, and even the time of day. Over weeks and months, patterns began to emerge. I noticed that I was more prone to these episodes during high-pressure situations, like job interviews, classroom presentations, or heated debates with friends. I also observed that my mind would often play tricks on me in quieter settings when I was trying to express a deeply personal thought or an abstract idea. It was as if the more I tried to control the conversation, the more elusive the right word became. In my quest for answers, I turned to literature on cognitive psychology and neurolinguistics. I learned that the brain stores and retrieves language in networks that are incredibly intricate. Under stress, the neural pathways can become congested, leading to what some experts call semantic blocking, or tip-of-the-tongue phenomena. Essentially, when anxiety spikes, it disrupts the smooth flow of language production. I also discovered that bilingual brains are often more adept at switching between tasks, yet this constant switching might sometimes lead to brief moments of hesitation as the brain recalibrates its linguistic focus. During one particularly introspective evening, I sat on the rooftop of my apartment building, looking out over the twinkling lights of Los Angeles. The gentle hum of the city below mingled with the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. In that moment of quiet reflection, I realized that my struggle with words was deeply intertwined with my identity. I was caught between two worlds: the vibrant, expressive tones of Spanish that resonated with my heritage, and the precise, often rigid structure of English that dominated my academic and social life. This internal conflict wasn't a defect. It was a reflection of the rich, multifaceted person I was becoming. As I continued my studies, I sought out ways to build my confidence and ease the pressure that seemed to trigger my linguistic blocks. I joined a campus group dedicated to public speaking, where I met students from all walks of life who shared similar challenges. In that safe, supportive environment, I learned practical techniques to manage my anxiety, breathing exercises, mindfulness meditation, and even simple tips like pausing to collect my thoughts rather than forcing a rapid response. Slowly, I began to notice improvements. The moments of silence became shorter, and I started to trust that even if I forgot a word, I could explain myself in another way, or simply take a breath and try again. One afternoon, while working on a group project in one of my favorite coffee shops in Westwood, I experienced a breakthrough. I was discussing our project on cultural narratives with a small group of classmates when I stumbled over a word again. Normally, this would have sent a wave of embarrassment through me, but this time I simply smiled and said, "I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a moment." To my surprise, my friends nodded understandingly, and one of them, Jason, a thoughtful, quiet type, offered, "Hey, it happens to all of us. Sometimes our minds just need a little pause." That moment of vulnerability, shared among peers, was profoundly liberating. It reminded me that language is not about perfection, but about communication, connection, and authenticity. I also began to explore creative outlets as a way to reconnect with the fluidity of language. I took up creative writing, dedicating weekends to scribbling down poems, short stories, and even keeping a stream of consciousness diary. In these private moments, I allowed myself to be imperfect. I played with words, made up new expressions, and embraced the pauses as natural parts of my creative process. Through writing, I discovered that forgetting a word was not a dead end, but rather an invitation to explore alternative expressions and to trust the resilience of my thoughts. There were days when the struggle would resurface, when speaking in front of a crowd or even a one-on-one conversation would trigger that unsettling blankness. I learned to be patient with myself, to acknowledge that each moment of hesitation was a learning opportunity. I started to reflect on the possibility that my brain, in its constant effort to merge two linguistic worlds, was actually honing a unique skill set, a flexibility that allowed me to navigate multiple cultures and perspectives. This realization shifted my mindset dramatically. Instead of viewing my moments of forgetfulness as failures, I began to see them as markers of my journey toward fluency and self-discovery. In classes, I would occasionally ask my professors about language acquisition, and the discussions would drift into fascinating territories. The neuroscience of memory, the impact of cultural identity on communication, and the social pressures of speaking a dominant language. These conversations were both enlightening and comforting. They provided academic validation for my personal experiences and reminded me that the phenomenon was multifaceted, rooted in psychological, neurological, and cultural dimensions. My friends and family also played an essential role in this journey. My best friend Maria, who had always been a pillar of support, often reminded me that the beauty of language lies in its imperfections. "Isabella," she would say with a warm smile, "your ideas, your heart, they come through, even if the perfect word escapes you sometimes." My father, Robert, shared stories of his own struggles with language during his early career, emphasizing that the journey to self-expression is rarely linear. Their reassurance helped me to embrace my vulnerability as a strength rather than a weakness. One of the most transformative experiences was a volunteer project I joined during a summer break. I traveled to a small town in Texas where I worked with a community center that offered English classes for recent immigrants. Interacting with people who were also grappling with the challenges of learning and adapting to a new language was eye-opening. I listened to their stories of hardship, hope, and perseverance, and shared my own. In these heartfelt exchanges, I realized that the struggle to recall words was a universal part of learning and growth. Each conversation was a tapestry woven with moments of triumph and hesitation, and every gap in language was filled with empathy and understanding. As the years passed, I continued to refine my relationship with English. I enrolled in advanced language courses, practiced public speaking with renewed determination, and even sought the help of a language coach. I studied not only the mechanics of grammar and vocabulary, but also the art of storytelling, learning how to weave narratives that could captivate an audience, even when the perfect word was momentarily out of reach. This holistic approach to language learning enriched my communication skills and deepened my appreciation for the nuances of expression. Looking back now, I see that my lifelong question, "Why do I forget words while speaking English?" was never about a deficiency in my abilities. Rather, it was a reflection of the intricate dance between emotion, identity, and cognition. My moments of silence were the echoes of a mind that was constantly balancing two worlds, negotiating between inherited cultural expressions and the demands of a global language. They were the pauses that allowed me to breathe, think, and ultimately grow. I now understand that forgetting words is not a sign of failure, but an integral part of the learning process. It is a reminder that language is living and evolving, just like the people who speak it. Every forgotten word has led me to discover new ways of expressing myself, and every pause has given me a moment to connect more deeply with my thoughts and the people around me. Today, as I continue my studies and build my future, I embrace those moments of hesitation with gratitude. They have taught me resilience, creativity, and the importance of self-compassion. I share my story not as a tale of constant struggle, but as a narrative of growth, of learning to trust my voice even when it falters, and of recognizing that true communication transcends flawless speech. I've come to realize that the beauty of language lies in its imperfections, its pauses, and the space it creates for genuine human connection. Each day, as I walk across the bustling campus of my university or engage in animated discussions in my classes, I remind myself that every conversation is a journey. There are moments when the right word escapes me, and that is perfectly all right. I have learned to rely on gestures, context, and the warmth of a shared smile to bridge those gaps. In the end, what matters is not the perfection of our words, but the authenticity of our expression. I still ask myself occasionally, why do I forget words while speaking English? Now, I know that the answer is not a simple one. It's a tapestry of factors. My bilingual upbringing, the pressures of academic life, the anxiety of performing in a language that carries so much cultural weight, and the very human tendency to stumble as we navigate complex thoughts. And in that complexity, I find my strength. I have learned to view every blank moment not as a void, but as an invitation to slow down, to listen to my inner voice, and to express myself in ways that are true to who I am. As I continue on my journey, I remain open to learning, to experimenting with new ways of speaking, and to understanding the depths of my own mind. My experiences have taught me that language is not merely a tool for communication. It is a mirror of our inner lives, reflecting our hopes, fears, and the intricate layers of our identity. In a country as diverse and dynamic as the United States, where countless voices come together in a symphony of accents and dialects, I find comfort in knowing that my struggles are shared by many. They remind me that our differences, our hesitations, and even our missteps contribute to the rich mosaic of human expression. In sharing my story, I hope to reach out to anyone who has ever felt the sting of forgetting a word at the most inopportune moment, who has ever been paralyzed by the fear of not being understood, or who has ever doubted their own abilities because of a fleeting moment of silence. I want you to know that you are not alone. Every pause in speech, every stumble over a word, is part of a larger narrative, a narrative of growth, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of understanding oneself. I continue to explore the intricate interplay of language and emotion through every class, every conversation, and every quiet moment of reflection. I know that the road ahead will still have its challenges. There will be days when the words seem just out of reach, but I am no longer afraid. Instead, I have learned to cherish the journey, to find beauty in the unscripted moments, and to honor the complexity of a mind that is continuously evolving. So, when I am asked again, why do I forget words while speaking English? I smile and answer, it's because I'm learning, growing, and living a life that is richer and more complex than any single word can capture. And with that, I continue to speak my truth, sometimes with pauses, sometimes with stumbles, but always with the passion of someone who knows that every moment of silence is just the start of a new, more thoughtful expression. Several months after that transformative event, my life on campus took on a new, vibrant dimension. I began to see that every conversation, every moment of silence, and every hesitant pause held a lesson, a unique opportunity to grow and connect. I still carried with me the echoes of past presentations and quiet classroom debates, but now I viewed them with a sense of curiosity and determination rather than regret. The memory of standing before my peers at the university auditorium, sharing my story of forgotten words and the emotional turmoil behind them, became a turning point. After that day, many students reached out to me, sharing similar experiences. Their words were gentle yet powerful, and each conversation reaffirmed that I was not alone. I started receiving emails and messages from fellow students across the United States, each recounting their own struggles with language anxiety and the fear of not meeting an unspoken standard of perfection. These exchanges slowly transformed my internal dialogue from one of self-criticism to one of mutual understanding and shared resilience. Inspired by this wave of openness, I decided to channel my experience into a tangible form of advocacy. I began writing regularly on a blog I titled Voices Unfiltered. In these posts, I recounted not only my own journey, but also the insights I'd gathered from countless conversations with others. I wrote about how, in moments when words seemed to vanish, I learned to pause, breathe, and embrace the silence as a space for reflection. I shared practical techniques, like mindfulness exercises, deliberate pacing, and even playful language games that had helped me navigate the maze of bilingual thought processes. The blog quickly evolved into a safe haven, a digital meeting place for anyone who felt that their voice was too fragile to be heard. Every comment and shared story deepened my belief that our imperfections are what connect us, not what divide us. My academic pursuits took on new meaning as well. Under the careful mentorship of Professor Mitchell, I embarked on a research project that delved into the neurocognitive aspects of bilingualism and language anxiety. Together with a team of curious and dedicated peers, I designed surveys and conducted interviews with students from various backgrounds. We aimed to capture those fleeting moments of hesitation, the brief, almost imperceptible gaps when the brain paused its search for the right word. Our findings revealed a complex interplay between emotional stress and the mental juggling of two linguistic systems. It was a revelation to see that what I had once perceived as a personal failing was, in fact, a well-documented phenomenon that affected many others. Presenting our research at a regional conference was both nerve-wracking and exhilarating. Standing before a crowd of academics and students alike, I spoke about the silent pauses that often accompanied our speech. That day, I felt a deep sense of validation, not just for myself, but for every person who had ever felt the sting of an elusive word. As the seasons changed on campus, so did my relationship with language. I began to experiment more freely, merging the rhythmic cadence of Spanish with the structured flow of English in casual conversations. Whether I was ordering coffee at a busy cafe in Westwood or discussing ideas with classmates under the warm Los Angeles sun, I allowed myself the freedom to blend both worlds. I discovered that sometimes the most profound expressions emerged not from perfect enunciation, but from the gentle interplay of pause and spontaneity. In those moments, every forgotten word was replaced by a thoughtful silence that carried its own kind of beauty. One crisp autumn evening, while walking through the tree-lined paths of the campus, I found myself reflecting on how far I had come. The anxiety that once crippled me during high-stakes presentations had slowly been replaced by a cautious optimism. I recalled an incident in my philosophy class where we were debating the nature of truth. As the discussion intensified, I found myself pausing longer than usual, not out of fear, but in a deliberate act of thoughtfulness. The pause allowed me to formulate a response that was richer and more nuanced. Later, my professor mentioned that my reflective silence had added weight to my argument, prompting a deeper discussion among my classmates. That moment affirmed for me that language, in all its imperfect glory, was a dynamic process, one that embraced both the spoken word and the meaningful silence between. Graduation loomed on the horizon, a milestone that felt less like an ending and more like the beginning of an uncharted journey. As I prepared to step into the professional world, I carried with me the lessons of my past, the courage to speak despite the occasional blank, the willingness to learn from every pause, and the unshakable belief that authenticity in communication is far more valuable than flawless speech. I accepted a position at a media company in Los Angeles, a bustling environment where clarity of expression was prized and the pace of communication was relentless. At first, the pressure was immense. Meetings and presentations demanded immediate responses, and the fear of faltering again occasionally crept into my mind. Yet, with each challenge, I recalled the support of my mentors, the encouraging words of friends, and the quiet triumphs that had marked my college years. In my new role, I often found myself drawing on the same strategies that had once helped me overcome my language blocks. I allowed myself moments to collect my thoughts, taking measured breaths before contributing to discussions. I also found that sharing my experiences with colleagues, some of whom faced similar challenges, created a more empathetic and collaborative work environment. Conversations at the water cooler and brainstorming sessions began to feel less like tests of perfection and more like opportunities for genuine connection. My blog, Voices Unfiltered, continued to grow, now reaching readers far beyond my immediate circle. The messages I received ranged from heartfelt thank yous to stories of others who had found solace in knowing they were not alone. Each message reinforced the idea that language is not a rigid code to be mastered, but a living tapestry that reflects our shared humanity. There were times, even in this bustling new chapter of my life, when I would catch myself in the quiet moments before a big meeting or a challenging conversation. I would remember the nights spent journaling my struggles, the comforting advice of Professor Mitchell, and the heartfelt support from friends like Maria and Jason. These recollections served as gentle reminders that every pause was a chance to reset, to re-engage with my thoughts, and to allow my authentic voice to emerge. I learned to see each moment of hesitation not as a blemish on my competence, but as a natural part of the continuous process of growth. Now, as I stand at the crossroads of new beginnings and past triumphs, I often reflect on that long-ago question: why do I forget words while speaking English? The answer, I have come to realize, is as layered and intricate as life itself. It is a question rooted in the interplay of identity, emotion, and cognition, a testament to the complexities of being bilingual in a world that values uniformity. My journey taught me that forgetting a word is not a failure. It is a moment of vulnerability, a fleeting gap where creativity and authenticity can take root. In sharing my ongoing journey, through academic research, personal reflection, and candid conversations, I continue to embrace the imperfections that define my relationship with language. Every forgotten word is a doorway to a deeper understanding of myself, and a reminder that true communication transcends the flawless delivery of thoughts. It is about connecting on a human level, where silence can be as expressive as speech, and where every pause is an invitation to reflect, listen, and grow. Today, I look forward to the future with a sense of excitement and openness. I am exploring new avenues, such as community outreach programs that help immigrants navigate the challenges of language learning. I volunteer at local centers, where I share not just practical advice, but also the personal stories that have shaped my own journey. I continue to write, speak, and learn, ever mindful that language is a living. A few months later, life began to weave a richer tapestry of experiences that deepened my understanding of both language and myself. One brisk spring morning, as I prepared for another day at the media company in Los Angeles, I received an unexpected email. It was an invitation to participate in a national panel discussion on language, identity, and resilience at a conference held in New York City. The prospect both thrilled and terrified me. Standing on a stage to share my personal journey, my struggles with forgotten words, and the anxiety that accompanied them, felt like a far cry from the timid girl who once hesitated before every English word. The invitation marked a turning point. I spent weeks preparing, not just my speech, but also re-examining the chapters of my life that had led to this moment. I revisited old journal entries and blog posts from Voices Unfiltered, reminding myself of the raw vulnerability and strength that had always pulsed beneath my surface. I realized that every pause, every stumble, had become a stepping stone to resilience. With the encouragement of my mentor, Professor Mitchell, and the unwavering support of friends like Maria and Jason, I gradually embraced the opportunity. I was no longer defined by the moments when words slipped away. Instead, I saw them as powerful reminders of my journey toward self-acceptance. The day of the conference arrived with a crisp, clear sky, a perfect metaphor for the clarity I was beginning to find within myself. As I stepped into the bustling venue in New York City, I marveled at the diversity of voices and stories represented. There were educators, linguists, immigrants, and even renowned public speakers, all gathered to celebrate the multifaceted nature of communication. Sitting among these individuals, I felt both a sense of kinship and a responsibility to honor my own story. Taking the stage was both exhilarating and humbling. My heart raced as I greeted an audience that spanned across generations and cultures. I began by sharing the personal history that had once filled me with anxiety. Growing up in a bilingual home in Los Angeles, the constant interplay between Spanish and English, and the moments of intense vulnerability when the right word would vanish into thin air. I described the emotional labyrinth I had navigated, how anxiety and self-doubt had once threatened to silence me, and how I had learned to transform that silence into a canvas for growth. I explained that my struggle wasn't just a personal failing, but rather a natural interplay of emotion, identity, and cognitive function. I talked about how bilingual brains operate in a state of perpetual negotiation, sometimes leading to those infamous tip-of-the-tongue moments. I detailed the mindfulness techniques and breathing exercises that had helped me reframe these episodes as opportunities for reflection rather than evidence of inadequacy. As I spoke, I noticed the attentive faces in the audience, many of whom nodded in understanding, their eyes reflecting shared experiences of language barriers and cultural negotiation. After my presentation, the room filled with applause, a sound that resonated deeply within me. During the ensuing Q&A session, questions poured in from curious attendees. How did I learn to accept my pauses? What strategies did I find most effective in reclaiming my voice? Each question was met with honest, thoughtful answers, often drawing from my own evolving research into neurolinguistics and the emotional dimensions of language. One particularly touching moment came when a young student from Atlanta stood up and said, "Your words made me realize that my own struggles with language aren't weaknesses, but marks of my unique journey." In that moment, I truly understood the transformative power of sharing one's vulnerabilities. Back in Los Angeles, life resumed its steady rhythm. yet something within me had irrevocably shifted. The panel discussion was only the beginning of a broader movement in my life, a journey from personal struggle to communal empowerment. My blog, Voices Unfiltered, experienced a surge of readership. Letters and emails began to arrive from every corner of the United States. One message from a teacher in Chicago recounted how my blog had inspired her to incorporate discussions about language anxiety in her classroom, while another from a recent immigrant in Miami spoke of how reading my words gave him the courage to enroll in English classes without fear of judgment. Emboldened by these connections, I started organizing local meetups and informal workshops where people could come together to discuss their experiences with language and identity. At one such gathering, held in a sunlit community center in downtown Los Angeles, I watched as individuals from diverse backgrounds shared stories that were as varied as they were profound. A middle-aged man, whose career had been hindered by his own stuttering, expressed how he now saw his speech patterns as an integral part of his identity rather than a flaw. A young college student, visibly moved, described how my blog had given her the confidence to speak up in class, even when the perfect word eluded her grasp. These sessions were filled with laughter, tears, and a palpable sense of camaraderie, a living testament to the idea that every forgotten word can lead to new beginnings. In parallel with these grassroots efforts, my academic pursuits continued to flourish. Under the guidance of Professor Mitchell, I co-authored a paper that explored the neurological underpinnings of bilingualism and language anxiety. The research combined insights from cognitive psychology, neurolinguistics, and personal narratives, presenting a holistic view of how stress and cultural expectations can temporarily inhibit language production. The process of writing and presenting this research at academic symposiums not only deepened my understanding of the subject, but also solidified my belief that my experiences were part of a broader, scientifically acknowledged phenomenon. At the media company, I gradually assumed more responsibilities that challenged me to communicate in high-pressure environments. There were days when the rapid-fire pace of meetings and the need for instantaneous responses would still trigger a brief moment of hesitation. However, each of these instances was now met with a quiet confidence, a silent affirmation that I had grown from those early, daunting experiences. I learned to trust my instincts, taking deliberate pauses when necessary and allowing myself the space to articulate my thoughts fully. My colleagues began to notice this newfound calm, and over time, the occasional pause in speech became less a signal of uncertainty and more a mark of thoughtful consideration. One memorable project involved covering a community event that celebrated cultural diversity in Los Angeles. The event, held in a park amidst a mosaic of food trucks, art installations, and live music, brought together people from myriad backgrounds. While interviewing community leaders and activists, I found that my earlier fears of losing words were replaced by a genuine curiosity about the stories unfolding around me. I recorded conversations where elders recounted their journeys of immigration, where young artists spoke passionately about blending traditional art forms with modern expressions, and where parents discussed the challenges of raising bilingual children in a fast-changing world. Each narrative, each pause in conversation, underscored the beauty of language as a living, breathing entity that adapted and evolved with its speakers. Reflecting on these experiences, I began to see my once frightening moments of wordlessness as powerful indicators of deeper cognitive and emotional processes. They were windows into the ways our brains balance multiple identities, languages, and expectations. I realized that my struggle was not an isolated incident, but a shared human experience, one that connected me with countless others who had ever felt the weight of linguistic and cultural expectations. As my work and advocacy continued, I started to receive invitations to collaborate with organizations dedicated to supporting bilingual individuals and immigrants. I became a guest speaker at workshops, participated in panel discussions on diversity and inclusion, and even contributed articles to well-regarded publications that focused on cultural integration. In each of these spaces, I made it a point to emphasize that language is not just about flawless execution, but about the heart and soul behind every word spoken. I encouraged others to celebrate their unique speech patterns, to see their pauses as moments of reflection, and to recognize that every forgotten word was part of a larger narrative of growth. Amidst these professional and community engagements, my personal life also blossomed in unexpected ways. I reconnected with my family on a deeper level, engaging in long conversations with my father, Robert, about his own early struggles with language and career challenges. My mother, Elena, shared heartfelt memories of her early days in the United States, when every English conversation was a step into an unfamiliar world. Their stories, filled with resilience and determination, reinforced the idea that every individual's journey with language is a mosaic of triumphs and setbacks. These intimate family dialogues not only bridged the gap between generations, but also strengthened my resolve to honor my bilingual identity with pride. One evening, while sitting with my family on the back porch of our modest Los Angeles home, I found myself reflecting on how far I had come. The gentle hum of the neighborhood and the soft glow of the setting sun seemed to echo the quiet assurance that had become my constant companion. I realized that my journey was ongoing, a continuous unfolding of experiences that would forever shape my understanding of language, identity, and connection. I shared with my family how my once dreaded pauses had transformed into powerful moments of self-expression, and how embracing these moments had allowed me to forge meaningful connections with others. As the months turned into years, I continued to nurture both my professional ambitions and my personal passions. My blog evolved into a platform that not only recounted personal narratives, but also hosted discussions with experts, educators, and fellow language enthusiasts. The conversations that unfolded online were as dynamic and varied as the voices they represented. Every comment, every shared story, was a reminder that language is not a static entity, but a vibrant, ever-changing dance of expression. There were still moments when the right word eluded me, a brief silence before I found the perfect phrase to capture a fleeting thought. But now I greeted those moments with a quiet smile. I had learned that every pause was an invitation to think deeper, to connect more authentically with the world around me. In every instance of hesitation, I found a reminder of my journey, a testament to the resilience that had carried me from a place of vulnerability to one of quiet strength. Today, as I reflect on my continuing journey, I am filled with gratitude for the experiences that have shaped me. My struggle with forgotten words while speaking English is no longer a source of anxiety. It is a living part of my identity, a narrative that intertwines the beauty of language with the complexities of emotion and culture. I understand now that every pause is not a void to be feared, but a space for growth, reflection, and connection. My story, once a private narrative of personal setbacks, has become a beacon of hope for others navigating the labyrinth of language. Each day, as I engage with new challenges, share insights on Voices Unfiltered, and participate in conversations that celebrate our diverse linguistic heritage, I'm reminded that the true power of communication lies not in perfection, but in authenticity. Every forgotten word is a testament to the human capacity to learn, adapt, and ultimately flourish. Looking ahead, I remain committed to exploring the endless interplay between language, culture, and identity. I plan to continue my research, deepen my community outreach, and perhaps even mentor young individuals who, like I once did, are struggling to find their voice. I want them to know that it is okay to pause, to stumble, and to embrace the spaces between words. In those moments of silence, there lies an opportunity to listen, to the heartbeat of one's own thoughts, to the whispers of history, and to the collective story of a world rich in diversity. As I step into the future, I carry with me the wisdom that every journey is marked by both light and shadow, by moments of clarity and times of quiet reflection. The question that once tormented me, "Why do I forget words while speaking English?" has transformed into a celebration of the intricate dance between language and life. It is a question that continues to evolve, just as I do, reminding me that every day offers a new opportunity to rediscover the beauty of my own voice. A few years later, I found myself standing at the intersection of opportunity and reflection, a place where my past struggles with forgotten words had evolved into a source of strength and inspiration. Life had taken unexpected turns that deepened my understanding of language, identity, and the power of genuine communication. One brisk morning in early summer, while preparing for a new project at the media company, I received an invitation from Daniel Thompson, an independent filmmaker based in Chicago. Daniel had heard about my work through Voices Unfiltered and wanted me to join him on a documentary project exploring the experiences of bilingual Americans. His vision was clear: capture the raw, unfiltered stories of individuals who navigated the complexities of language in everyday life. As I read his message, memories of countless moments, the anxiety of losing a word mid-sentence, the profound relief after a thoughtful pause, rushed back. I realized that each of those moments had prepared me for this very opportunity. Traveling to Chicago for the first time in years, I felt both excitement and a gentle nostalgia. The city's vibrant energy and deep-rooted cultural history mirrored my own journey in many ways. Daniel introduced me to his team, a diverse group of storytellers and cultural historians who were passionate about exploring the intersections of language and identity. Over long days of filming in bustling neighborhoods and quiet parks, we met individuals from every walk of life: a retired teacher who had migrated from Vietnam, a second-generation poet whose verses captured the silence between words, and even a community organizer named Sylvia Martinez, who dedicated her career to helping immigrants overcome language barriers. During one particularly poignant interview in a small community center in the Pilsen district, I sat with a soft-spoken gentleman named Harold, whose story struck a chord in me. Harold recounted how, as a young immigrant from Haiti, he struggled not only with the English language, but with the overwhelming fear that every missed word might seal his fate as an outsider. His eyes shone with both vulnerability and a resilient spark as he described the first time he deliberately embraced a pause, a moment that allowed him to collect his thoughts and eventually transform his fear into a quiet confidence. Listening to him, I felt an immense sense of kinship. His narrative resonated with every moment I had ever experienced on stage or in front of a classroom full of expectant faces. Back in Los Angeles, the documentary project sparked new ideas. Inspired by the stories we'd captured and the collective courage of our interviewees, I began to consider ways to further empower others through language. I started collaborating with local educational programs and community outreach initiatives aimed at supporting bilingual youth. At one workshop held in a modest community center in South LA, I met Nicole Ramirez, a vibrant and determined young woman who reminded me so much of my own past self. Nicole shared how every forgotten word once felt like a personal failure, yet through perseverance and the support of mentors, she had learned to see these moments as stepping stones toward a richer self-expression. Her words, filled with passion and authenticity, encouraged me to launch a new segment on Voices Unfiltered, dedicated to sharing the diverse experiences of bilingual Americans from all corners of the country. My work began to take on a dual nature, one part professional media production and one part personal journey of reflection. I immersed myself in research once more, collaborating with Professor Mitchell on a follow-up study that examined not only the neurological intricacies of bilingualism, but also the social and emotional dimensions of language hesitation. We spent countless hours analyzing data from surveys and interviews, unearthing patterns that connected seemingly isolated moments of silence to broader themes of resilience, identity, and empathy. Our findings, which we later presented at several academic conferences, underscored that the fleeting gaps in our speech were not failures at all. They were the neural and emotional spaces where creativity and introspection could flourish. In parallel with these professional endeavors, my personal life blossomed in unexpected ways. I reconnected more deeply with my family, my father, Robert, and my mother, Elena, and cherished the quiet evenings we spent reminiscing about the past. One night, as we sat on the back porch of our Los Angeles home under a starry sky, my father recounted his own early career struggles, and my mother shared how her journey as an immigrant had been filled with both linguistic hurdles and small, triumphant breakthroughs. Their stories, rich with humor and hardship, served as a powerful reminder that our challenges with language were part of a larger, intergenerational tapestry of perseverance and hope. Amid these personal and professional milestones, I began to see the contours of a new path unfolding before me. The experiences that had once made me hesitant to speak, those moments of forgotten words, had gradually transformed into a language of their own. They became a means of connection, a silent code that resonated with anyone who had ever felt the weight of expectation or the fear of being misunderstood. I started to channel these insights into a book project that I tentatively titled The Art of Pause: Embracing Silence and Finding Your Voice. In its pages, I wove together personal anecdotes, academic research, and the stories of those who had shared their struggles with me over the years. The process of writing the book was both cathartic and enlightening. Every chapter deepened my appreciation for the unscripted moments in life that allowed us to grow. One afternoon, while preparing for a panel discussion at a national conference in Atlanta, a city known for its rich cultural history, I found myself reflecting on how far I had come. The memory of standing on stage years ago, trembling with fear at the thought of forgetting my words, seemed like a distant echo. Now, I had learned to pause with intention, to use silence as a tool rather than a hindrance. In a panel that brought together educators, activists, and media professionals, I spoke about the transformative power of vulnerability. I explained how each pause in speech had become a moment of clarity, a chance to recalibrate my thoughts, and to speak from a place of genuine understanding. The response was overwhelming. In the audience, I saw nods of recognition and even heard whispered affirmations that affirmed the collective struggle we all faced in finding our voices. After the discussion, as I mingled with other panelists and attendees, I was approached by a young woman named Tasha from Atlanta. With eyes full of determination, she told me that my story had inspired her to pursue a career in education, where she hoped to empower bilingual students to see their challenges as strengths. In that instant, I realized that the journey I had once thought was so deeply personal had grown into a beacon of hope for countless others. It was a reminder that our individual struggles, when shared openly, could create ripples of change that spread far beyond our own lives. Now, as I look to the future, I see a horizon filled with endless possibilities. My work in media, education, and community outreach continues to evolve, driven by the belief that language is not just a tool for communication, but a living, breathing reflection of our collective humanity. Every forgotten word, every deliberate pause, has become a brushstroke in the ongoing masterpiece of my life. And while the question, why do I forget words while speaking English, still lingers in moments of quiet introspection, it now serves as a reminder of the beauty of imperfection and the power of resilience. I carry with me the lessons of my past, the strength drawn from moments of silence, the empathy born from shared vulnerability, and the transformative potential of speaking from the heart. Whether I am behind a camera in Chicago, addressing a room full of aspiring educators in Atlanta, or simply sharing a quiet moment with my family in Los Angeles, I know that every word I speak is a tribute to the journey that has made me who I am today. And so, with every new chapter of my life unfolding, I continue to embrace the spaces between words, cherishing each pause as an invitation to grow, connect, and ultimately to speak my truth.
Tips and tricks to stop forgetting words while speaking English. If you've ever found yourself in the middle of a conversation, searching for the right word but unable to find it, you're not alone. It happens to almost everyone, even fluent speakers. But why does this happen? And more importantly, how can we fix it? Today, I'll share deeply explained tips and tricks to help you stop forgetting words while speaking English and improve your fluency. 1. Understand why you forget words while speaking English. Before fixing the problem, we need to understand why it happens. Here are some key reasons. Check mark: lack of practice. If you don't speak English regularly, your brain doesn't retrieve words as quickly. Anxiety and nervousness. Stress can block your ability to recall words. Translation problem. Thinking in your native language and translating into English slows down your speech. Lack of exposure. If you don't hear or read new words often, you won't remember them easily. Memory retrieval issues. Sometimes your brain knows the word but doesn't bring it to your mouth fast enough. Now that we understand the reasons, let's move on to powerful tips and tricks that can help you overcome this problem. 2. Think in English instead of translating. One of the biggest mistakes learners make is thinking in their native language and then translating into English. This creates a delay, and often the right word doesn't come to mind. How to fix this? Practice thinking in English. Instead of forming sentences in your native language, start thinking in English, even for simple things. Describe what you see. Look around and say things in English in your mind. Example: the sky is cloudy today. Use English for daily activities. Write your grocery list in English, set your phone's language to English, and talk to yourself in English. The more you train your brain to think in English, the faster words will come to you when speaking. 3. Speak slowly and use filler words. If you rush while speaking, you'll feel more pressure, and your brain might freeze, making you forget words. Instead of staying silent or panicking, use filler words like, well, you know, let me think. How do I say this? These give you extra time to recall words without feeling embarrassed. Example: yesterday I went to the place where you buy food. Yesterday well, let me think. Oh yes, I went to the grocery store. This small trick makes you sound more confident and natural. 4. Learn words in context, not just as individual words. One reason we forget words is that we memorize them without understanding how to use them in real situations. Instead of memorizing a word alone, learn it with a sentence or in a situation. How to fix this? Instead of memorizing appointment, learn I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Instead of memorizing hesitate, learn I hesitate when I speak because I forget words. When you learn words in full sentences, your brain remembers them faster. 5. Improve your listening skills. Surprisingly, listening more helps you remember words while speaking. This is because our brain remembers words better when we hear them in natural conversations. Listen to English podcasts, news, or YouTube videos. Watch English TV shows and movies with subtitles. Repeat what you hear. This is called shadowing. Example: 1. Watch a short English conversation. Repeat what the speakers say. 3. Try saying the sentences without looking at the subtitles. This helps your brain store words better so you won't forget them in conversations. 6. Use word association and visualization. Your brain remembers words better when you connect them to images, experiences, or emotions. How to fix this? Use images. When learning new words, imagine a picture related to them. Associate words with personal experiences. Example: if you learn the word adventure, think about the last time you had an adventure. Group similar words together. Example: learn angry, frustrated, annoyed as a group instead of separately. This makes words easier to recall when speaking. 7. Practice speaking daily, even if you're alone. If you don't use English daily, you'll keep forgetting words. The best way to stop forgetting words is to practice speaking every day. How to fix this? Talk to yourself in English. Describe your daily activities out loud. Use voice messages. Record yourself speaking and listen to your progress. Find a speaking partner. Join online groups or talk to friends in English. Use AI chatbots or language exchange apps. Even 5 to 10 minutes of daily speaking practice can help you recall words faster. 8. Read aloud to train your brain and mouth together. Reading aloud helps connect your thinking and speaking skills. When you read out loud, your brain processes words faster and remembers them better. If you're still struggling to recall words while speaking English, don't worry. Here are even more powerful techniques to help you stop forgetting words and speak confidently. 10. Train your brain with spaced repetition. Your brain forgets words when you don't review them regularly. To fix this, use the spaced repetition system, SRS, a scientifically proven method to remember words longer. How to use this method? Day 1. Learn a new word and use it in a sentence. Day 3. Review the word and say it aloud. Day 7. Use the word in a conversation or writing. Day 14. Test yourself by explaining the word without looking it up. Best tools to help you. Apps like Anki, Quizlet, or Memrise help you use SRS automatically. Create a small notebook and write words with their meanings. Record yourself using new words in sentences. The more often you recall a word, the less likely you are to forget it. 11. Learn synonyms and alternative phrases. Sometimes we forget specific words, but that doesn't mean we can't express ourselves. If you learn synonyms, words with similar meanings, you'll never feel stuck while speaking. Example: instead of happy, say joyful, cheerful, delighted. Instead of angry, say upset, frustrated, annoyed. Instead of big, say huge, enormous, massive. If you forget one word, you can quickly use another one instead. This helps you sound more fluent and natural. 12. Use the 5-4-3-2-1 speaking method. This is a powerful fluency exercise that helps you think and speak faster. How it works. 1. Choose a topic. Example, my daily routine. 2. Speak about it for 5 minutes. 3. Repeat the same speech, but now for 4 minutes 4. Again, repeat in 3 minutes 5. Then, say it in 2 minutes. 6. Finally, say it in 1 minute. Each time you repeat, you force your brain to remember words quickly and speak faster. After practicing this for a few weeks, you won't forget words easily. 13. Improve your pronunciation to remember words. Better. Sometimes, we forget words because we don't know how to pronounce them well. When words feel unfamiliar to our mouth, we hesitate. How to fix this? Listen to native speakers on YouTube, podcasts, or audiobooks. Repeat what they say. This is called shadowing. Use pronunciation apps like Forvo or Google Pronunciation to hear correct sounds. When you pronounce words correctly and confidently, they become easier to remember.